My girlfriend said, "My ex makes triple what you earn. Maybe I should have stayed with him." At the $180 dinner I was paying for, I smiled, maybe, tipped the waiter, and began a full reinvention. Months later, she returned, but I'm Qley, 31M, medical device sales manager in Charlotte. And 18 months ago, my girlfriend said something that completely changed my life trajectory. Not because it broke my heart, though it stung like hell, but because it lit a fire under me that I didn't know existed. Ilara, 28F, and I had been dating about 10 months. She's a lifestyle blogger with like 45K Instagram followers, does some yoga instruction on the side, posts a lot about wellness and living your best life. I'm in medical device sales, good money when you hustle for commission, but my base salary was around 68 grand at the time. We were having dinner at this upscale place in South End she'd been wanting to try. I'd been putting it off because honestly, $200 for dinner felt steep when I was trying to save up for a down payment on a house. But she kept mentioning how her friend had posted photos there, how amazing the ambiance was, so I figured why not. Halfway through appetizers, she starts scrolling Instagram while I'm trying to tell her about landing a new account. Not unusual, she was always researching content, or whatever. But then she stops at this post, and her whole energy shifts. "God, look at this place," she says, turning her phone toward me. "It's some rooftop restaurant in Miami. Very fancy, very expensive looking. Zarek took me there last year. The wine list alone was insane. Zarek's her ex, tech executive, makes serious money, drives a Tesla, lives in one of those glass towers uptown." She'd mentioned him before in passing, but something about her tone was different this time. Wistful, maybe. "Looks nice," I said, because what else do you say? It was incredible. He never even looked at the prices, you know. Just ordered whatever sounded good. That's such an attractive quality in a man. I felt my jaw tighten but didn't respond. We finished the appetizers in weird silence. When the check came, $180 for what amounted to fancy snacks, I did my usual thing of checking the total before putting my card down. Not because I couldn't afford it, just because I was raised to be aware of what things cost. That's when she said it. "You know what? My ex makes triple what you earn. Maybe I should have just stayed with him." The restaurant noise faded out. I looked at her across the table, this woman I'd been planning a future with, who I'd introduced to my family, who had her own toothbrush at my apartment, and she was looking at me like I was a financial disappointment she'd just realized she was settling for. I could have gotten defensive, could have pointed out that I work my ass off, that commission sales can be unpredictable, that comparing your current boyfriend to your ex is a shitty thing to do regardless of the context. Instead, I just said, "You're probably right." Her face changed immediately, like she'd expected a fight and didn't know what to do with calm agreement. "I mean, if money's the most important factor, then yeah, you probably should have stayed with him. That's not, I didn't mean it like that." "Fair enough," I said, and signaled for the check. We didn't talk much on the drive home. She tried to backtrack, said she was just frustrated about her inconsistent income, that she didn't mean to compare us. I nodded along, told her I understood, dropped her off at her place with a kiss on the cheek like everything was normal. But something had shifted permanently, not just between us, but in me. I'd grown up watching my dad work 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Learned early that you don't complain about your situation, you either accept it or you change it. And sitting in my truck outside her apartment that night, I made a decision. If she thought I wasn't making enough money, fine. I'd fix that. Started working overtime immediately. Picked up weekend trade shows I'd normally skip. Instead of Netflix nights with Ilara, I was cold calling prospects and following up on leads. Gym every morning at 5 a.m. because I read somewhere that discipline in one area breeds discipline in others. Found a mentor at work. This guy Stellan, who'd been in device sales for 15 years and was pulling down mid-6 figures. Asked him to show me everything. Prospecting strategies, negotiation tactics, which accounts to prioritize. Took him to lunch twice a week and treated it like graduate school. "Most people in sales are lazy," he told me. "They make their quota and coast. You want to get rich? Work like your life depends on it every single day." So that's what I did. Ilara noticed the change, but not in the way I expected. Instead of being impressed by my drive, She seemed annoyed that I was less available. Started making comments about me being all work and no fun. How I'd become boring since I started taking everything so seriously. It's like dating a robot, she said after I canceled our third dinner plan to handle a client emergency. When did you become so obsessed with work? Just trying to improve my financial situation, I said. Thought that's what you wanted. She got defensive, said I was twisting her words, that she just wanted me to be more ambitious. But when I suggested she come to the gym with me or spend a Saturday learning about real estate investing instead of brunch, suddenly my ambition wasn't the right kind. 2 months later, she broke up with me. Said we'd grown apart, that she needed someone who understood work-life balance, that she'd been talking to Zarek again and realized what she'd been missing. I hope it works out for you, I told her, and meant it. Honestly, best thing that could have happened. Freed up another 20 hours a week to focus on business. Edit. For those asking, no, I wasn't trying to win her back. Once someone tells you they should have stayed with their ex, the relationship's already over. This was about proving something to myself. Update 1. Quick update since a few people asked how things turned out. Ilara did get back with Zarek. Saw it all over her Instagram. Fancy dinners, weekend getaways, designer everything. The lifestyle she thought she wanted. Good for her. Meanwhile, I'd been grinding like my life depended on it. Hit 140% of quota my first quarter, focusing solely on work. Got assigned to some major hospital networks that had been stagnant accounts for years. Instead of going home and watching TV, I'd research decision makers, find ways to add value beyond just selling products. Started a real estate side hustle with the extra commission money. Nothing crazy. Bought a duplex in Noda, fixed it up on weekends, rented out both sides. The cash flow covered the mortgage plus gave me an extra $800 a month. Used that to fund the down payment on a second property. Riven, my gym partner and business accountability guy, kept pushing me to think bigger. You're putting in the hours anyway, he'd say during our 5 a.m. workouts. Might as well build something that pays you while you sleep. He was right. Real estate started as a way to park extra income but became this whole education in leverage, cash flow, market analysis. I was learning more about money in 6 months than I had in my entire 20s. The weird part was how different I felt. Not just about money, but about everything. When you prove to yourself that you can completely change your financial situation through focused effort, it changes how you see problems in general. Instead of complaining or making excuses, you just ask, what needs to be done, and how fast can I do it? Work buddies started asking what had gotten into me. My numbers were getting noticed by regional management. Stellan pulled me aside one day and said, whatever happened to you this year, don't let it wear off. You're about to lap guys who've been here twice as long. Around month 3 post-breakup, I ran into Mira, one of Ilara's friends, at a coffee shop in South End. You look different, she said. Good different. Like you've been hitting the gym. Every day for 4 months, I said. Ilara mentioned you guys broke up. She seems happy with Zarek. I hope so. She deserves to be happy. Mira studied my face like she was looking for bitterness or resentment. When she didn't find it, her expression shifted. Can I ask you something? Were you guys having problems before? Because she made it sound like you just weren't compatible. We had different priorities, I said. Turns out that was a good thing to figure out early. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I always thought she was making a mistake, but I think you might have dodged a bullet. Interesting perspective from someone who knew her better than I did. That weekend, I closed on my second rental property and got notification that I'd hit top 10% of sales reps company-wide. Celebrated by taking myself to that expensive restaurant where this all started. Ordered whatever sounded good without checking prices. Sat there alone, eating a $40 steak, and realized I felt more content than I had in any of those dinners I'd stressed about affording 6 months earlier. Eat it. Someone asked if I missed her. Honestly, I missed the idea of having a girlfriend, but I didn't miss feeling like I wasn't enough. Hard to miss someone who made you feel like a consolation prize. Update 2. Life comes at you fast sometimes. I'd been promoted to senior sales rep with a territory expansion, was pulling down around $110K between base and commission, had 3 rental properties generating solid cash flow, started dating casually but nothing serious, Was honestly enjoying the freedom of building something without having to justify my priorities to anyone. Then last Tuesday, I'm getting home from the gym around 7 p.m., and there's someone sitting on the steps outside my new condo downtown. Took me a second to recognize her. Ilara. She looked different. Smaller somehow. Not physically, but like the confidence I associated with her had been dialed way down. "Hey," she said, standing up as I approached. "I know this is weird, but I was hoping we could talk." My first thought was that something bad had happened. Family emergency, health scare, something that would explain why she'd drive across town to ambush me at my place. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Not really," she said, and I could see she'd been crying. Long story short, Zarek had dumped her. Apparently his thing was cycling through attractive women for a few months at a time before moving on to someone new. She'd just been the latest in a rotation she didn't know existed. "I thought he was serious about me," she said. "When I left you for him, I thought we were going to build something real. But he was just using me as entertainment between work trips." I made coffee while she explained how the breakup had gone down. He'd taken her to an expensive restaurant. Ironic, right? And casually mentioned he'd started seeing someone else, that their arrangement had run its course. "The worst part is how stupid I feel," she said. "Everyone tried to warn me, but I thought I knew better, thought I deserved that lifestyle." She looked around my place, the downtown condo, the new furniture, the view of the city I'd worked my ass off to afford, and I could see her putting pieces together. "You've done well for yourself," she said quietly. "Been staying busy. Mira told me you bought some properties and got promoted. Market's been good to me." We sat in silence for a minute. Then she looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, vulnerable, but also calculating. "Do you think," she started, then stopped. "Do you think there's any chance we could try again? I know I messed up. I was shallow and materialistic, and I threw away something good for something that looked better on Instagram." Part of me felt bad for her, genuinely. Getting played sucks, regardless of how it happens. But another part of me was thinking about that night at dinner, about how she'd looked at me like a financial disappointment. "I appreciate you apologizing," I said. "That took guts. But I think we're looking for different things. I'm not the same person I was then," she said quickly. "This whole thing taught me what actually matters. I don't care about expensive restaurants or luxury trips anymore." "Maybe not," I said, "but I'm not the same person either." She started to say something else, but my doorbell rang. I'd forgotten I had plans. Opened the door to find Thalia, the pediatric resident I'd been seeing for about 6 weeks. We'd met at a charity fundraiser I'd attended for networking. She was there because she genuinely cared about kids' health. I was there to meet potential clients. Ended up talking for 3 hours about everything except work. "Hey," she said, then noticed Ilara on my couch. "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you had company." "Thalia, this is Ilara, my ex. Ilara, this is Thalia." The contrast was immediate and striking. Thalia in scrubs from a 12-hour hospital shift, tired but genuinely happy to see me. Ilara in full Instagram-ready makeup despite the crying, clearly sizing up the competition. "I should go," Ilara said, standing quickly. "Kaylin, think about what I said." After she left, Thalia raised an eyebrow. "That seemed intense." "Ancient history," I said. "How was your day?" What I didn't tell Thalia, and what I'm realizing as I write this, is how different it felt to be chosen by someone who knew exactly what I was worth, versus being settled for by someone who thought she could do better. Thalia makes good money, but more importantly, she makes good choices. When I told her about my real estate investments, she asked thoughtful questions about market trends and cash flow analysis. When I mentioned working weekends to close a big deal, she offered to bring me dinner instead of complaining about my priorities. The woman sitting on my couch apologizing for leaving me wasn't the same person who'd made that comment about her ex's salary. But I wasn't the same person who'd let that comment define his worth, either. Edit. A lot of you are asking if I'm going to give her another chance. The answer is no, but not out of spite. When someone shows you how they think about relationships, as transactions where love is conditional on financial performance, you should believe them. Final update. It's been exactly 18 months since that dinner conversation that started this whole journey, and I figured I owed you guys a final update. The numbers first, since that seems to be what matters. I'm now a regional sales manager making $140K base plus commission. That puts me around $180K total. Real estate portfolio is worth about $400K in equity. Generates enough passive income to cover my living expenses. Dating an incredible woman who chose me when I had way less to offer than I do now. But honestly, the financial stuff isn't the real story here. Last month, I ran into Zarek at a networking event downtown. Hadn't seen him since before he started dating Alara. He looked rough. Turns out his company downsized his department, cut his salary by about 30%. The woman he'd left Alara for had promptly moved on to someone with better prospects. Karma's a bitch, he said, trying to make it sound like a joke. Market's just tough right now, I replied. You'll bounce back. What struck me was how bitter he seemed. Like his worth was so tied to his income that losing some of it had shaken his entire identity. Made me realize that might have been Alara's real problem too. She'd never learned to see value beyond the numbers. Speaking of Alara, I heard through mutual friends that she's been struggling, lost a lot of followers when her luxury lifestyle content disappeared, had to take a retail job to pay rent. Still single, still looking for someone to fund the life she thinks she deserves. I don't take any pleasure in that. Honestly, I hope she figures it out. Everyone deserves to be happy, even if they need to learn some hard lessons first. The biggest change isn't financial, it's psychological. I used to measure my worth by external validation, whether that was hitting sales targets, or affording expensive dinners, or being chosen by someone I thought was out of my league. Now I measure it by whether I'm building something meaningful and treating people with respect. Thalia and I moved in together 3 months ago. She was hesitant at first because she didn't want to rush things, but also because she makes less than I do and was worried about the financial dynamic. Had to convince her that what I care about is how she thinks about money, not how much she makes. You're responsible with what you have, I told her. You save for goals, you don't buy things to impress people, and you never make me feel like a bank account with legs. That's worth more than any salary. Last weekend, we went to that same restaurant where this whole thing started. Not to prove a point, just because she'd heard they had good food and wanted to try it. When the check came, I barely glanced at it before putting my card down. Not because I'm rich now, but because I was sharing the meal with someone who valued my company more than my credit limit. That was amazing, she said as we walked out. Thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for being someone worth bringing here, I said. On the drive home, she asked about my ex situation. I'd told her the basic story before, but she'd been curious about details. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd just argued with her that night? She asked. If you'd defended yourself instead of getting quiet and working harder? I thought about it for a minute. Probably would have had a big fight, broken up anyway, and I'd still be making 68 grand wondering why I wasn't enough. So you're glad it happened? I'm glad I responded the way I did. Pain is a terrible thing to waste. The truth is, Alara did me a massive favor. Not by leaving, though that helped too, but by showing me exactly what it feels like to be valued for what you provide instead of who you are. Once you know that feeling, you never accept it again. These days, success feels different. It's not about proving anything to anyone or funding someone else's lifestyle expectations. It's about building something that matters and sharing it with people who choose you for the right reasons. My girlfriend compared me to her wealthy ex and told me she should have stayed with him. She was probably right at the time. They were a better match based on what they both valued. But becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to argue about his worth because his actions speak loud enough. That was worth every early morning, every overtime shift, every weekend spent learning about real estate instead of sleeping in. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well. Edit. Thanks for following this journey, guys. For anyone dealing with similar disrespect, don't argue about your value, demonstrate it. The right people will notice, and the wrong ones will eliminate themselves from your life. Edit 2. Someone asked if I'd recommend my approach to others. Yes, but with one caveat. Do it for yourself, not to prove anything to someone who doesn't deserve your effort. The goal isn't revenge, it's becoming the person you're capable of being.